Basin on July 27th at 3 o'clock. Call the roll, please.
Director Daddy?
Present.
Director Finch?
Here.
Director Thielke?
Here.
Chair Hages?
Here. I'll stand for the pledge of
And Director Whitman is not here yet.
Not yet, not yet. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're gonna skip around on the agenda a little bit because Jim has to leave early. And I'd like to get some of the main items done while he's here. So we're gonna move to, first of all, let's take care of this letter to well owners. We were supposed to do this 6 months ago and didn't. The letter was drafted and we all approved it. But where it went, I don't know. But we've redone it. We have a new letter, and Peter Candy's gone over it, Julia's gone over it, and the intent is simply send this out as the first volley and see what we get back. I mean, there may be people that just don't realize that we exist, I'm sure, there's plenty of them. So see what we get back, and then based on that, we'll move to the next action. I know Cece was talking about this counties thing. Well, the county has a database. We certainly should compare databases and see if they have anything that we don't and vice versa. Keep both of them up to date. Anyway, any discussion or comments on the draft letter?
The only thing I wanted to mention that's different from the letters you saw in the past is that this one has something to be completed by the well owner and returned back to us, like in writing. I think the previous letter just said, call us and tell us. I'm like, I'd like it in writing. So that's what's different about it. And then some of the language Peter went through to make it consistent with how the county defines active or abandoned wells, so that we're just using consistent language. I think those are the main things, unless, Peter, you have anything to add?
No, that about covers it. Yeah, this is intended to be the first interaction with the well owners. We're going to need to track who the letter goes out to, and then, of course, who we get responses back from. And for any folks we don't get responses back from, we're going to need to follow up and with them individually and try to get a response. But they'll need to indicate whether they've got an active well or whether it's an abandoned well, and then the response will flow from there, depending on whether their well is active or abandoned. We'll follow up with different letters for the active well owners. The requirements imposed on an active well owner are different than if they state that their well is abandoned. If they state their well is abandoned, then they'll receive a letter saying that they need to follow the county procedures to either exempt the well from destruction, or they're going to need to destroy the well. But in the meantime, they're going to need to be paying wellhead fees, so on and so forth. So that's basically what we're intended to do with this, and happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
I have a question about the format. Is this gonna be a 2-page piece of paper that goes out as we see it here?
I believe in double siding, yes. It'll be double-sided paper,
It'll be double-sided.
not 2 pages.
Okay, that's what I want to know. If you do 2, it's 4 times as complicated for them as 1.
Double-sided. The part that they have to complete will be on the back side of the paper.
And maybe you need to put big yellow C reverse
See,
side.
sure,
Yeah.
yes, good idea.
As people here, they think the N is a lot more complicated than the O because of the direction of the angles.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions?
Let's accept it.
Peter? No? Keep your finger off of that. Are there any comments or questions from the public?
Take your finger off.
Okay, hearing none.
I bring a motion that we accept this as written. Do I have a second?
I do, second.
All right, call the roll.
Director Daddy?
Yes.
Director Finch?
Yes.
Director Felke?
Yes.
Chair Aegis?
Yes. All right. This time we'll send it out. Okay, the next thing I'd like to go over is the first attempt that Julia's done on a draft budget for next year, and of a cash flow analysis on the next 5 years GSP.
Yeah, so what I did was I got the actual final numbers for fiscal year 21, 22, what the current fiscal year actual is as of June 30th, and then what I estimated it'll be at the end of the fiscal year. Those are the first 3 columns. And then the last column is kind of a proposed budget for next fiscal year. Item, like down in expenses for the GSP implementation, that 125,100 is taken from the next sheet, which I printed out bigger for you so you could read it. For fiscal 23-24, these are the description of the project management actions from the GSP that we had a call last week. Jordan and I, Trevor and Richard, to kind of rank them on priorities and how they would spread out over the next 5 years, and then what the proposed expenses would be. So I took the 2023 estimated cost, I left that the same for next fiscal year, and then I added a 4% inflation for the next 4 years for each of those, and then showed kind of where we think those would fall over the next 5 years. The ones that don't have an amount, like item 3A, 3B, those are beyond the 5-year projection. So I put 0 for them. They're still in the GSP, but we don't see them being performed or implemented over this 5-year window that we're looking at. So I'm interested in your thoughts on both the projections for the GSP as well as the budget. You can see on the projection spreadsheet the fiscal year total down at the bottom. So the next couple years is, 125, 150,000, and then it jumps up a bit in the third year because that's where we have to do the 5-year update. Is going to be that fiscal year, updating the numerical model. There would be some big expenses out in 25, 26. What I'd like to do is have kind of a reserve of GSP to handle that. So maybe the next go up, right now it's $37 per acre foot. If that's something we want to think about bumping up, then we'd have to go through the Prop 218 process to do that, and we can certainly go through that.
Do we, under the GSP?
Yeah, we have to do 218, but we don't have to go to the legislature.
But there's only one level of service. I mean, we don't have classes or tiers or whatever.
Yeah. Well, we can ask Peter, he's here.
Yeah, I knew you guys were going to ask me. I need to look at it. It's a confusing area. My understanding is that groundwater extraction fees are not subject to 218, Proposition 218, because they're not the type of fee that arises under the 218 umbrella. But I need to confirm that, and I don't want to be speaking out of turn, but that's my general understanding. My sense is that it's not subject to 218, but I can confirm that. I can confirm it pretty easily, but I just don't have it at my fingertips right now.
Peter, when you say 218, because we've got viewers, maybe 2 or 3 or 5, I want to make sure everybody understands what portion of the 218 we're speaking about. That portion that says you cannot charge more than your actual cost, is that what we're specifically talking about on this 218? That we have to prove that our costs are a certain amount so we can charge? Is that exercise?
Yeah, well, that's 218 is a procedural requirement that right, we got to jump through the various hoops, and that would include a cost of service study.
When you spend X dollars, it's your
And-
cost of service.
And so then I'd kind of like to have an explanation of how we're putting our numbers together. I see where we have 3 sources of revenue. Are all 3 of those sources of revenue subject to 218? And I don't expect an answer, but I would kind of like to get an answer sooner or later and see if they're all subject to. So, we have fees, we've got extraction, we've got the big 3 charges where we get our money. And it would just be interesting to see if we have to jump through each one of the hoops on each one of those items, or if we can do them simultaneously.
Well, they're different from the standpoint that
Oh, no, I know they're different.
the
That's what I'm saying. Are they part of the component of 218?
OBGMA fees are approved by the legislature. We have to go back to the legislature to get those
Okay.
increased. The GSA fees, we have the authority to increase. And we also, I believe, have the authority to increase the wellhead fee.
So is,
Those are the 2 we're talking about.
okay, so is wellhead 218?
Is it 218, or could it be what's the other one, Peter? The one that's related to property, assessments on property?
I mean, we've got the extraction, we got the wellhead, and we got the GSP. And so those are the 3, and it would be nice to know which one of those
Well,
has the
I
least
agree with
amount of
Steve.
obstacles.
Right. Extraction fees are
matched.
legislative. We would need to go back to the legislature to increase what's been legislatively authorized. That the GSP fees, I do not believe are 218, subject to 218, nor do I believe the wellhead fees are. But again, I don't want to be speaking out of turn, and I want to be clear with this. So I'm going to go check and have an answer for you, for the board.
Chair Hages, this is Bruce Kubler. Could I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
For your information, the Upper Ventura River Groundwater Agency has approved 2 extraction fee increases without going through Prop 218. Our attorney said that we didn't have to.
Yeah, you have a different customer base than we do. I mean, you're primarily, water districts in the city, so,
Well, we have 9 private pumpers.
okay.
Yeah, I don't.
Anyway, just for your information.
I don't think United did 218.
It didn't?
I don't think so. You see, I thought that the GSP was exempt in it, especially.
Well, it could be. The only thing I
Anyway,
would say
but
is.
we're not under the gun, so
No.
Peter can do the research and
Yeah.
And,
get
and,
back.
and as a follow-up to all this, we're still waiting for State Water to give us a seal of approval on our plan, I
GSP.
guess.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if there isn't anything that could come back that would be some extra expenses or extra conditions or
Probably.
or extra little things that, we
Probably.
don't have down here is a possible rock in the road.
Yeah, the one thing that I think we hadn't had time to do a real thorough analysis, but some of this is double counting because some of the effort for the OBGMA is being applied to the GSA. So, when, if we look at last year's expense budget, a lot of those things were related indirectly or directly to the to the GSP, and then we put more numbers in here. So some of this will be, I think, will be smaller, because we'll be able to apply, like Jordan, for example, a lot of the monitoring has been doing is part of the GSP. And we could establish like a overhead or some kind of standard charge percentage that we're gonna apply to administration, et cetera. We can move some of that OBGMA cost into the GSA.
Yeah, and this is meant to be a draft, so all your feedback is appreciated.
No, I think it,
Because the budget would have to be adopted at the August meeting, right, for September start? No, October 1st is the start.
Yes.
So it'd have to be out, adopted in September at the latest. So you got time to think about it, give us feedback, and we can just update from there. Maybe
Looks
present another version with some information about the Prop 218 and whether it's applicable or not at the next meeting as well.
I have a question. I think when they went to get the extraction fee raised, it's higher than what we're charging, but they decided only to go up to 25 at the time. Do you remember
Right.
that?
right.
It was like 60 or something. We went to a higher limit when we went to legislature.
No, I think it came back at 25. I think we're at the cap.
I'll look that up, because
Okay.
I think that the board decided to just do it incrementally, but
That's for the extraction charges?
That's very important.
for the extraction
Charges,
charges,
okay.
I've aged quite a bit lately, but I believe there's something in there about that,
Okay.
because they didn't want to go boom, because it was down to, like, it
12.50.
started at 5, long ago?
Then 12.50.
750, and then, yeah.
What's the wellhead fee, do you know?
65.
65.
65.
A flat amount, 65 every quarter.
A quarter. Okay. All right. Well, some of the things you should, and I don't know if I can see these numbers that well, but some of the things you're gonna notice is in that 1 year, we go from, about $150,000 in cost to 400 and some thousand dollars in cost. And what's interesting is the big ticket item is a 5-year report. $200,000 to produce a report that, I don't know what they're gonna do with it, and we don't have 5 years to do it, because the clock already started. So that's the big ticket item in here. The other one is kind of we have some discretion on the meters, because we thought we were gonna get a grant. We didn't, so we put some money in for metering, but it depends on how much money we have left, so.
Yeah, and that amount was just to do kind of an evaluation of who has meters and who doesn't, and, what it would take to implement metering for those people who don't have it. Kind of just a little study, evaluation, next fiscal year.
Maybe that could go in, well, I guess the letter's already been
Yeah.
accepted, huh?
But
Could go in the letter.
how many report without meters? Why don't we just get that back next time?
Well, here's the problem that we're having, because there's about almost 3 years of no reporting. And so we're getting it back. People have meters, but some people haven't kept track quarterly.
Okay.
So we can look back to like the last complete year to see who had meters. And it is in our database as well.
Well, let's just go forward with it from here, and then we can go backwards on the issue ones.
Is that list I sent you reasonably accurate for 2021?
I did not know what to compare that with. That came from Roberta?
Roberta or John, I don't know.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I think it came from John.
Probably.
Yeah.
And he probably got it from the database. I don't know. I'm studying that as I try to find people.
Anyone have any questions or comments on this portion?
I think it looks good,
Okay.
other than the big hit in 2 years, which,
Yeah, that's the,
that, we almost need to talk to our legislator. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Well,
okay.
that's for the 5-year update.
Which isn't 5 years later. If they just,
It's gonna be due, and so they have to do the work ahead of time to get it ready for the submittal in the 5th year.
Along with the annual reports.
Yeah.
So we need to have a
if you're doing,
So we need to have a $10,000 a month reserve that we start getting right now for a report that's due in 2 years, that's not due in 2 years. Got it. Amazing. I would recommend that we do send a note to Mr. Bennett and our state senator Lamone and say, come on, guys. I mean, we want to comply, we want to do all this stuff, but we're not doing anything except for extracting money from too many people. And we're pushing too many pieces of paper after we chop down too many forests.
it's not it won't be accomplishing one thing. I mean, the annual reports. Yeah.
But
Anyway.
what does it give them that they don't have that's gonna be brand new
We better shut
after
up since we
32
haven't.
years?
Yeah, we haven't been approved
We
yet, so
haven't been
we'll wait
approved,
until
so we better shut up.
Okay.
Okay, is there anything else on that item? Thank you, Julia. Okay, we'll move back to director comments. Peter?
I just thought it might be interesting to report that Senior Canyon is still producing enough water to not rely on any casitas purchases in July and mostly likely August. So this is really, I've never seen anything close to this. So the effects of the 45, 50 inches of rain we're still experiencing in a positive way. Come September and October, I would expect things to go back to something approximating what's normal. But still, you know, July, August, June, we haven't purchased any casitas water basically since December. I mean, other than a 5 acre feet here and there.
Okay, Jim?
Nothing to report.
Bob?
Nothing from
I don't have anything either. Okay, general manager comments.
Another thing that we were working on over the past few weeks was a draft of an ordinance that addresses the perched groundwater, southwest upper, tell me again, Swoozy?
The southwest uppermost saturated zone.
Swazi. Doesn't roll off the tongue. But it's not at a point where we felt we could present it to you today, so Peter and Jordan and Richard and I will keep working on it and have that for you the next time. The other thing that we need to address is an agreement between Casitas and OBGMA for me, assuming you want to keep me around, because this was like a 6-month trial period. So we can draft something up with your direction if you would like that to continue.
Yes.
Okay.
If you're willing.
I am willing.
Don't ask her.
Excuse me.
I am willing.
Okay.
So, so we'll put something together, draft that up for next time as well. I feel like there was one more thing. Can't remember.
There's always one more thing.
There's always one more thing. If it pops into my head, I'll bring it up, but right now I can't think of it.
Okay. Jordan, basin report.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me share the screen here, which even if we're not zooming once upon a time, it still makes it darn easy to present these this way. Okay, so today's, you hear about the dog days of summertime, and we are probably in the puppy dog days. And one of the constituents here in Ojai told me once upon a time, if it's an ugly puppy, it's an ugly dog. And hopefully this puppy's not too ugly, but we'll see. Year-to-date rainfall totals, as we've heard, not a lot since the last meeting, 72.68 up on the ridge, 41.43 on the valley floor. Again, measurable rain every month but April and now July. So how has the basin responded? What's interesting, as we reported last time, surface water was continuously flowing from late December through late January, and then with the dryness there and not yet saturation in the basin, the continuous flow went away and then returned February 24th and then continued through June. One of the interesting things is that while we've had the creeks dry up over the basin, all of them are discontinuous since June, some wells still continue to flow artesian here today as we speak at the end of July. In the Key Well area, we have quite a bit of pumping going on in the basin with the heat that we're experiencing. So our measurement today is bears an asterisk. We're looking at about 62.45 feet or 90% basin capacity of 72,000 acre feet. And what's interesting is that that asterisk is because the well was pumping. So we're assuming that it had the typical 3.5 feet of drawdown that we were experiencing typically when that well pumps. And that's based on the most recent set of continuously logged pumping periods that we have for that well. So it's probably fairly accurate, but we'll refine that in the coming months. An interesting thing about this chart is that you notice that going from 37.78 feet down to 62.45 feet from April through July of this year is of similar magnitude recession to what we saw in 2019, where we had a peak in July and then our November low was almost the same separation, just a little under 30 feet for that particular year. And I think part of that is due to the basin losing water when we are that full, going either around the horn of the perch system or the perch system itself losing water. More on that in coming slide. So the balance from yesterday's reconnaissance, we measured 0.54 CFS at Gridley, 0.94 at Senior Canyon, Thatcher 0.11, Reeves 0.05 CFS. These are getting pretty tough to measure as a CFS, but we're still able to estimate these rates. Surface flow out of 14.16 CFS on San Antonio Creek proper and 0.32 CFS out of the creek alongside Montgomery under Creek Road. And what's interesting is, of course, that balance gives us a recharge of 2.1 CFS. And I put a greater than because these are all measured over some degree of alluvium. And if we were to hike up to the points across private property, we want to avoid that, where the alluvium ends, we'd probably see more flow right on top of the bedrock coming into each of these canyons. As Peter reported, so much silt coming in at Senior Canyon's tunnel, or at it, you've got the most of the water coming in over bedrock, and then by the time it touches any alluvium, begins to infiltrate. And what we're measuring is a partial infiltration. So this 2.1 CFS that I'm reporting is a minimum. That's just what we're able to measure at the surface. More is certainly going on below that surface. But the outflow of 14.48 CFS is pretty close to being over bedrock. And this is due to artesian wells. We've got some nuisance water still and perch system water. So how has the perch system responded over the past couple of times, couple of months? I like this graph here because this is the raw data from yesterday from, on the left, one of the OVSD monitoring wells on the northern portion of the Swazi. southwestern uppermost saturated zone. And that's where the water is flowing from. Within this perch system, or the Swazi, you have basically a dewatering of 0 to 0 from December to July in OVSDMW6, and this is just north of Grand Avenue. And the key thing there is that, hey, all that water came in and all that water went out. That well was as dry yesterday as it was before the rains in fall 2022. Whereas the southern portion, where the depth discrete monitoring well is present, we still have quite a bit of water in that portion of the basin within the perch system, and still discharging quite a bit of water to San Antonio Creek. In the northern portion on the left graph, it's completely discharged that water, whereas some of it still remains in the southern portion.
What's the red line?
It's temperature, and it's a relative thing. It's expanded, but it's pretty tight within a range of 67 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So we still have some artesian flow. Here was last month. This is the well at Boardman, and down to about 5 gallons per minute as of yesterday, but still flowing artesian. One of the depth discrete monitoring well casings remains flowing artesian as well on South Fulton Street. Downstream from Ojai Avenue, last month, you can still see some water flowing there through an algae mass, but yesterday, it's really dry. All that algae is desiccated and there's no visible surface flow. Downstream from Grand, it was already dry as of last month, and what we're finding in some of those puddles are bits of either arroyo chub or triple spine stiflebacks that are trapped and just waiting for predation, and they're effectively dead state here.
Effectively dead?
It looks like they're maybe, they look dead from this perspective. Some of them clearly have had the guts ripped out of them, but some of them, is there a heart beating there? I don't know.
Are either of those endangered species?
No,
No? Okay.
no. My understanding is that these are some of the native species that are, this is part of their life cycle.
It's part of everybody's life.
At this time, in these conditions, to which they've adapted and yet continue to come back every year.
Very well.
Yeah. So last month, up at the confluence of Senior Canyon and Gridley, and then this month, and no longer going over the road, but still going under it, and there's a culvert under that stream. Under Creek Road, the Stewart Canyon or Montgomery Creek, 0.74, it's about half that flow today. Fortunately, it's all going through a nice little weir for us to measure. At the exit last month, 20 CFS, same spot. Yesterday, still declining, in that 14 CFS rate. Our chart continues to grow in information and data. I think we'll need to start expanding this out so it's more visible as we continue to get more and gather more data. But in the puppy dog days here, we're seeing a significant decline in the elevation at which groundwater is daylighting from the Swazi area, and rapidly decreasing in flow velocity as well, and volume. So going forward, we'll continue to work on better estimates of the perch system storativity and transitivity, and that'll come with doing some pumping in the depth discrete monitoring well, especially the shallowest casing that we have there, and get some of the water quality from wells and creeks in that system. And we still need to replace the logger in San Antonio Creek near the discharge area. So there you go. Any questions?
Is storativity a real word?
Yes.
You're sure?
Storativity is a hydrogeologic term that relates to the capacity of an aquifer to
That was a consultant's prerogative to make up words.
oh yeah, no. Effectively dead. I'll leave that to Julia to coin.
That's
Jordan, I didn't quite get the metaphor for the puppy dog.
Yeah, so the idea is that if we get to the dog days of summer,
Oh.
as in August and September, when it's just hotter and drier, maybe just now we're in the puppy dog days.
Yeah.
And hopefully the puppy wasn't too ugly and the dog won't be too ugly either.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Jordan.
All right, thank you.
Okay, the next item is for public comments on items not appearing on today's agenda. Is there any public that wishes to comment? Okay, hearing none. Consent.
Hi, Richard. It's
Oh,
Bert Handy. How you doing?
yeah, go ahead, Bert.
I can. Yeah, I was looking on the home page for OBGMA, and I noticed that the chart that Mr. Kerr has set up, it's not current. Is there a way to make that current so we can see on the chart what's going on with the aquifers?
We're working with the website manager to add some things and update some things, so I will add that to the list, Bert.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, consent agenda. We have the financial report for June and making up lost minutes.
So move.
Second.
Call the roll.
Director Daddy?
Aye.
Director Finch?
Yes.
Director Silky?
Yes.
Chair?
Yes. Okay. I think we got it all. There is no other questions or comments. We are adjourned at 3:40.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like.
Proud of you, Richard.
But I'll reserve our questions for the next meeting.
We
It
started
was
right on time.
3:02.
Yeah, I was